When you're over 60, airports can feel like a race you never signed up for. Endless walking, tight connections, and boarding calls that always seem one step ahead of you. Most seniors just push through because no one at the counter leans in and says, "We can make this easier for you." Yet behind the scenes, there are systems, services, and little-known rules meant to help older travelers, if you know how to ask. So in this video, we're breaking down 12 forgotten travel rights seniors can actually use without arguing, begging, or feeling guilty. And keep a close eye on right number 6. Use the right way. It can save you thousands of dollars and lighten the stress of dealing with trouble far from home. But before we get into the details, hit like, subscribe, and send this to the person over 60 you worry about every time they head to the airport. Let's start with the big one, the service many people think is just an internet rumor, but is actually written into procedures for passengers with reduced mobility, often used by seniors 60 and above. This isn't a random favor someone does if they feel generous. When you request wheelchair assistance, the airport is supposed to send someone to meet you, usually at the curb or check-in. From there, they walk you through the whole maze. Check-in desk, security, maybe immigration, and then get you on the plane before first class. When you land, it works in reverse. Someone meets you at the aircraft door and runs the return trip with you. Sounds pretty great, right? The best part is the bar to qualify is much lower than most people think. You don't have to be completely unable to walk. If long distances, heavy bags, or shaky knees wear you out, you can still ask for what's called ambulatory assistance when you book or at check-in. In practice, if walking the airport feels like too much, this right already has your name on it. In many countries, this mobility support is included in what airlines and airports must provide. The person pushing the chair is often a contracted worker, so a small tip is a polite thank you, especially if they've waited with you or wrangled bags along the way. And here's the quiet bonus most people don't realize. Once you're in that assistance system, your name isn't just on a clipboard. You're flagged as someone who needs extra time and support, and that unlocks a whole chain of small advantages that make travel less exhausting. You'll see those advantages pop up again in the next few rights. That moment when they announce anyone needing extra time down the jet bridge may board now, and you're not sure if you're allowed to stand up? This is the right that quietly has your name on it. Pre-boarding isn't just for wheelchairs and emergencies. Maybe you walk a little slower these days, your balance isn't great in a crowded aisle, or your back complains if you stand too long. That's enough reason. At the gate, before boarding starts, walk up and say, "I'd like to request pre-boarding. I move a bit slower and need extra time to get settled." Short, calm, and completely within your rights. Airlines already have systems for this. United, for example, spells out that they prioritize boarding for passengers who need mobility assistance when they ask for it. And Delta and Southwest run similar setups. Request extra time boarding, and you'll usually be brought on before the main crowd, especially when your name is already tagged in the system for mobility support. The payoff feels bigger than it sounds. You stroll the jet bridge without a line breathing down your neck, find your seat without being rushed, and grab overhead space while it's still there. The whole flight starts quieter and more in your control. Have you ever stayed in your seat because you weren't sure you qualified to board early? Tell me in the comments. I want to know how many times this simple right has been left unused. And if just reaching that far-off gate is what stresses you out, right number 3 is designed to fix exactly that. Ever landed at a huge airport, checked your next gate, and thought, "There's no way I'm making that"? For seniors, those 15-minute walk signs can feel like a threat, not information. This is where right number 1 turns into your secret connection shortcut. If you've requested wheelchair or mobility help, it doesn't stop at the first gate. You can ask the staff to take you all the way to your next flight. In big hubs, that often means an attendant walking with you or pushing your chair while you glide past the crowds and get steered through the most direct route instead of wandering through half the terminal. And in case you didn't request this ahead of time, what happens then? you still have options. As you step off the plane, tell the crew at the door or go to the transfer desk. I'm over 60 and long walks are difficult. Is there wheelchair or cart assistance to my next gate? The earlier you speak up, the better they can coordinate. Is it guaranteed every single time? No. But many viewers report being driven under the terminal, escorted through long corridors, and walked straight to the next gate just because they asked clearly and early. Think back to your last tight connection. Were you power walking with your heart racing? Or could one sentence have turned that dash into an escorted walk? Body scanners and metal detectors hit differently when your knees are artificial, your hip has screws, or your heart relies on a pacemaker. That little beep can feel like the whole line is staring. Stressful, right? What almost no one explains is this. Travelers with medical issues are written into the security rules, not squeezed around them. TSA and most other security agencies train officers specifically for joint replacements, pacemakers, metal plates, chronic pain, and limited mobility. They just can't see any of that by looking at you. So instead of silently hoping the machine behaves, take control before you step in. As you reach the officer, keep it short and matter of fact. I've had knee replacement surgery and I usually set off the scanner. Holding my arms up is painful. What's the best way to screen me? Or, I have metal implants and walking long distances is hard. Is a pat down or different lane possible? Simple, clear, and you're not arguing. Just giving them the info they need to switch to the right procedure. Depending on the airport, they might route you through a regular metal detector, do a pat down with a chair nearby, or move you to a calmer lane where they can go more slowly. No lecture, no eye rolls, just a different tool from the same rule book. A small surgery card or doctor's note in your wallet can back you up. But honestly, what you say in that first sentence usually matters most. Think about it. Would you rather power through in pain and set the alarm off 3 times, or spend 10 seconds explaining and be screened in a way your body can actually handle? The goal here is simple. Get through security without burning all your energy before the trip even starts. Have you ever looked at the chicken or pasta tray and thought, there is no way my doctor would sign off on either of these? This isn't just a problem for older travelers, but it gets a lot more serious when your health truly depends on what you eat. On most international routes, you don't have to play menu roulette. Airlines already stock special meals that usually cost you nothing extra. Low sodium for heart and blood pressure issues, diabetic-friendly trays, vegetarian and vegan options, gluten-free meals, plus kosher and halal on many routes. These aren't upgrades. They're standard choices for people who can't just eat whatever. A decent low-sodium meal alone can help keep swelling and discomfort down instead of leaving you puffy and miserable by landing. The catch is timing. Special meals are loaded from a list that typically closes 24 to 48 hours before departure. After you book, open your reservation on the airline's website or app and look for special meal or meal request. If the menus feel confusing or everything blends into one long list, skip trying to decode it yourself and call the airline so a real person can match your medical needs to the right option. Showed up at the airport without doing this? Sometimes there are spare special meals, but that's luck, not a plan. Use this right and your flight starts with food that works with your body, not against it. And while your meal tray can protect your health, the next right protects your money. Right number 6 lives in your wallet, and most seniors never realize this one is even allowed. Hospital bills in another country are the kind of surprise no one wants. The wild part? A lot of seniors already pay for solid travel protection every year and never realize it, because it's built into their credit card. Many mid to high tier cards quietly include travel insurance when you use that card to pay for your trip. That can mean coverage for trip cancellation or interruption, delayed or lost luggage, emergency medical care abroad, even hotel and meal money if your flight gets badly delayed. Imagine this, a multi-$1,000 medical bill abroad, and your card quietly swallows most of it, as long as you knew how to turn the benefit on. So how do you actually switch it on? The smart move is before you fly, not after something goes wrong. Take the card you usually book travel with, flip it over, and call the number on the back. Tell the agent you're planning an international trip and have them walk you through exactly what that card protects: cancellations, missing bags, and emergency medical care overseas. Then add the part that matters more as we get older. Does my age or any pre-existing medical conditions change what's covered? Ask them to point you to the full benefits guide on their website, or email you a copy. Save it, screenshot the key pages, and note the emergency claims number in your phone. In most cases, coverage only applies if the trip was paid with that card, so make sure at least your main tickets go on it. One phone call, a few questions, and you'll know whether a missed connection or hospital visit would be a financial disaster, or mostly annoying paperwork. After this video, pull out your wallet, pick one card, and check its benefits. Then come back and share in the comments what you found out, and whether you've been sitting on real travel insurance this whole time without realizing it. What if the biggest difference in how you feel after a flight wasn't the airline, but the seat your knees and back are stuck in? Back row that barely reclines, middle seat in a packed cabin, stuck by the bathrooms when you already tire easily. That's a long flight waiting to go wrong. This isn't about sneaking into business class. It's about using the cabin you already paid for in a smarter way. An aisle so it's easier to stand up, a few rows closer to the front, or away from heavy foot traffic. One small seat change can turn a never again flight into something close to relaxing. And I've seen it happen in my own family. On a trip to Europe, my dad was first assigned a middle seat in the very back. Bad knees, overnight flight, terrible combo. At check-in, he simply said, "I have knee problems. Is there an aisle seat closer to the front in economy?" Luckily, there were still a few open aisles, so the agent could move him forward at no extra cost. Same ticket, same cabin, just a better spot. He walked off that plane tired, but not wrecked. The best moment to ask is when seats are still shifting. Online check-in, on the phone, or at the counter. You're not demanding an upgrade. You're asking them to use open seats in a way that makes the flight safer and more manageable. Many agents will help when they understand it's about pain and mobility, not just preference. One reminder, exit rows are usually off limits if you have mobility or health limitations, because those passengers must assist in an emergency. Next, let's talk about the moment you hit the baggage carousel, and how right number 8 can keep you from wrestling suitcases by yourself. Landing feels like a win, until you reach the carousel and realize the trip ends with yanking a heavy suitcase off a moving belt. For a lot of travelers over 60, that last twist and lift is exactly where the back, shoulder, or balance gives up. The good part? The special assistance you signed up for in right number 1 doesn't have to stop at the aircraft door. If you're on wheelchair or mobility service, you can ask the attendant to stay with you through baggage claim and out to the pickup point. They wheel you to the carousel, spot your bag, pull it off the belt, and help you get to the exit or taxi area. Picture this. Instead of wrestling a 50-pound suitcase while the belt keeps moving, one simple request, and the staff does the heavy work for you. That's exactly what this right unlocks. And if you're not in a wheelchair, don't panic. Many airports have luggage heroes whose whole job is handling bags, porters with carts. Before you start wrestling with your bags, stop by the airline desk and ask if they offer porter service or baggage help to get you and your luggage out to the taxi area. They'll either point you to a porter station or call someone over. There's usually a fee or an expected tip, but older travelers and wheelchair users are often prioritized. Think of it as buying back your energy and your joints for the rest of the day, not just paying someone to move a suitcase. Once you see how far a clear request can go, rights start to feel less mysterious. That sets up right number 9, your right to ask direct questions and get straight answers, instead of relying on rumors and guesswork. For seniors who can't sleep on airport chairs, this can be the difference between a nightmare and just a delay. When schedules fall apart, maybe the flight runs hours late, gets canceled, or your connection slips away. Most travelers end up in the same long line at the same overwhelmed desk. for passengers flagged as needing special assistance, the rules in many countries, like the US, focus on one core idea. You should get timely help with boarding, deplanning, and making your connections, especially if you use a wheelchair or have reduced mobility. In real life, that can play out in small but important ways. An agent might pull you aside to rebook you separately, or walk you to a quieter counter instead of leaving you in a long queue. It isn't a guaranteed go first rule, but that assistance tag often changes how staff handle your situation. This isn't triggered by age alone. The system only notices you if your booking says you need help. That means ticking special assistance, wheelchair, reduced mobility, elderly assistance, when you buy the ticket, or calling the airline before your trip and asking them to add it to your reservation. When disruption hits and that note is already on your file, you have a stronger footing to speak up. You're reminding them that leaving you in a 2-hour queue isn't realistic, and nudging them to use the procedures they already have for passengers who need extra help. Picture the difference: a night on a plastic chair with swollen legs, or being walked to a desk, rebooked, and sent to a bed. If you've ever lived through a messy cancellation, this one small detail on your reservation can change how that story plays out. And now that we've talked about the worst-case scenario, let's swing to something much nicer. Right number 10, using delays and long layovers as your ticket into airport lounges, even when you're not flying business or first. Long layover, sore back, bright lights, kids crying at the gate. Meanwhile, the lounge next door looks like a different planet. For travelers over 60, getting in isn't guaranteed, but it's not a fantasy either. There are 2 doors you can try, and the first one might already be in your wallet. Door 1. What's already in your wallet? A lot of travel and premium credit cards include some kind of lounge access or a priority pass style membership, and some airline status levels do too. In many families, an adult child or spouse has the card and can bring you in as a guest. Before you travel, check your card benefits on the bank or airline website or app. Look for words like airport lounge, priority pass, club access, or complimentary visits. If it's there, note which lounges and airports you can use and how many visits or guests are allowed. That way, you're not guessing at the door. If your wallet doesn't open door 1, don't worry. Door 2 shows up when your trip gets messy. Door 2, when your flight falls apart. Long delays, missed connections, or overnight layovers, especially when your booking is marked for wheelchair or special assistance, are the moments when it's completely reasonable to ask for a calmer place to wait. There's no rule that guarantees free lounge entry, but agents sometimes have tools: a lounge voucher, a discounted day pass, or at least a designated quiet area. At the desk during a major delay or long layover, you might say, "I'm on special assistance, and this is a very long layover for me. Is there any help with lounge access or a quieter area where I can sit and rest?" Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes they point you to a quieter zone. And occasionally, that one polite question turns into a lounge invitation you never would have known about. Nothing here is automatic. But if you're stuck for 5 or 6 hours, it's a low-risk move that can turn a draining wait into real rest, which matters a lot more once you're past 60. On the next right, we'll stay in the quiet perks theme and look at one cabin exception many seniors don't realize they can request. This is one of those quiet rights hardly anyone talks about, but it makes a huge difference if you're over 60 and travel with medicine or devices. Most airlines treat 2 things differently: your regular bags and your medical items. Your suitcase and backpack are one category. A small bag that clearly holds medication and medical gear often sits in its own category, and many carriers don't count it as an extra piece of hand luggage. In practice, that means you can usually have your normal cabin setup, a carry-on and a personal item like a small bag or purse, and still bring a separate small medical bag. That might hold your daily pills in original boxes or blister packs, a blood pressure monitor, insulin and diabetes supplies, or a CPAP or small breathing device. When it obviously looks like a medical kit, staff tend to treat it that way. The part that scares most people is liquids, and this is where you really can go past the 100 milliliter rule without getting into trouble. Syrups, eye drops, saline, Wound cleaning solutions. If they're clearly medicine, many security lanes allow them through above the usual limit. Saying so out loud helps. Prescription labels or a brief note from your doctor are a nice bonus, not always a requirement. Now let's talk about how to say it so they let it through. You don't need anything fancy, just one simple line at check-in or security, for example. These are my medications and medical devices. I need to keep them with me on the plane. Most of the time, that's enough for them to treat the bag as medical and not lump it in with your regular carry-on. If you like everything nailed down in advance, call the airline before you travel and ask them to confirm their medical bag or medical devices policy and whether that bag is separate from the standard cabin allowance. Jot down the answer and keep it with your documents. For seniors with chronic conditions or strict medication schedules, this isn't a tiny detail. It's peace of mind at 35,000 feet. Once you've used this right, you won't want to hide a week's worth of pills in the corner of a backpack ever again. By this point, you've probably noticed a pattern. So many secret perks only exist if you ask. That also means something important. Your real superpower as a senior traveler isn't a magic phrase on TikTok. It's about something quieter. Your right to get clear answers from the people actually running your flight. Online, you'll see everything from seniors get free extra bags to they upgraded my grandma just because she was 80. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But the gap between those stories is exactly why asking directly matters so much more than repeating what a video says. Your best script is simple and honest, and you can use it on the phone before your trip or at the airport counter. Something like, I'm over 70 and have trouble walking long distances. What official assistance is available for me on this trip? Things like wheelchair help, extra time boarding, help with connections, or medical and meal support. One question, and you've put everything on the table. Mobility, boarding, connections, medical needs, food. Their answer gives you the real menu of support for that airline, that airport, that ticket, not a generic promise. Then, after your next trip, try this and let us know how it went. Because real stories from real travelers over 60 are what turn guesswork into genuine guidance for everyone watching. If you're still here, you've already done the thing most travelers over 60 never do. You've learned what you can actually ask for. From wheelchair help and extra time boarding to special meals, lounge options, hidden card insurance, better seats, baggage help, and that extra medical bag. None of this is luck. It's knowing what exists and speaking up for it. Which right surprised you the most? And have you ever tried asking for one of these? Did it work or not at all? I'll be collecting the smartest tricks from this comment section and building them into future videos. So your experience could shape what thousands of other seniors learn next. If this makes your next flight feel a little less intimidating, hit like, subscribe, and share it with the person you always worry about at the airport. You don't need to fly on guesswork anymore. You can fly knowing what you're actually allowed to ask for.